Hello everybody, and before I get into today's topic, I just want to make a couple of announcements. And the first one is that next week on Tuesday, August 28th, I'm doing a Conversations with Dr. Pam call on chemicals and cancer. There's so much misunderstanding about this. People want to know about things like plastic bottles for water and herbicides and pesticides and air pollution, and I mean we could do this for hours. We're going to try and contain ourselves to a short period of time and answer the real important questions. But if this is an area of interest for you and you'd like to participate in that call, our number is 614-841-7700. And then also it's back to school time, not just for kids in public and private schools, but for people who are attending the Wellness Forum Institute. And this fall, school starts September 9th for those who are interested in either taking an individual class or enrolling in the Nutrition Educator program. And I'll tell you what our course offerings are for the fall: Anatomy and Physiology, Microbiology 1, Evaluating Statistical Evidence, Psychology 2, Nutritional Issues and Controversies, Nutrition and Diabetes, Nutrition and Cardiovascular Disease, Sports Nutrition, and Business Training for Health Professionals. So you can take one class or you can take them all. If you need more information about any of that, contact the office. So on to today's topic, which is, why do we have to talk about politics? I got an email from one of my regular readers who really didn't like the series that I did on dietitian licensure and the disciplinary actions of licensure boards. And she had two reasons for writing to me. One was she said that she really prefers when I write articles about diet and health and nutrition and that sort of thing. And the other is that she was a health professional who had spent a lot of money on her education and felt that we just shouldn't let everybody and anybody into the health field. And I'll come back to that a little bit later on, but let's start with the first issue, which is, why are we talking about politics? And the reason is we have to, because politics and health and medicine and healthcare, they're all inextricably entwined. We cannot separate one from the other. Government and the political system are why we are faced with such irritating issues as, for example, why livestock farmers get subsidies and broccoli growers don't, and why our kids are eating things like chicken nuggets and cheese food and other delightful things in school. So we just have to have this discussion. So it would be great if we could just talk about plant-based nutrition every day and how fabulous it'll be when everybody understands the diet and adopts it, but that's not the real world. It would also be great if plant-based nutrition solved everything and we didn't have to worry about things like the FDA and legislators and the influence of drug companies, but you know what? This is the real world. So we have to address the issue that politics stands in the way many times of the dietary improvements and health improvement that we'd like to see Americans make. So we have to take our heads out of the sand, stop pretending that these problems don't exist or that they're going to go away, or if we ignore them, they will just not influence things quite as much. That's not the truth. So my information, as controversial as it might be, and I talked about this last week, is really for the person who says, you know what, I really do want to take my head out of the sand. I need to understand these issues. They affect me in deep and profound ways. And if politics is part of it, it might be unpleasant, but okay, bring it on. Which brings me to licensure, the second thing that this person emailed me about. And this is a big point of contention. And I just want to give you some background on the licensure issue so you can maybe understand where we're coming from on this and why it's become such a problem. Licensure was initiated by first medical doctors. This was over 100 years ago. Medical doctors got licensed to practice, and they spent a lot of money and effort and energy making sure that everybody knew that osteopaths were dangerous and should not be allowed to practice. And then the osteopaths got organized and they got licensed, and they joined with the medical doctors to make sure everybody knew how dangerous chiropractors were. And the chiropractors actually sued the American Medical Association and won. It was a big multi-million-dollar judgment, and that helped chiropractors get licensed in a number of different states. And now the chiropractors have joined with the medical doctors and the osteopaths to make sure everybody knows how dangerous naturopaths are. And are you starting to pick up a trend here? This is all about turf and title protection, and I won't revisit the whole issue because you can go back and read my newsletters and read the detail behind this. But the bottom line is that there's never been a practice group that eventually screamed and hollered loud enough and got licensure that turned out to be a threat to the public at all. The reason why they had to scream and holler and fight and scrap to gain licensure was basically because of the groups that wanted to protect their turf against new people coming in. So what we're faced with right now is we have a handful of occupations we license in this country, but there are lots of other people who actually have a great deal to contribute who aren't licensed professionals, and this is particularly true in the nutrition field. There are some even lay people who have got a lot of knowledge. They've gained a lot of knowledge by taking classes and changing their diet themselves and that sort of thing, who have a lot to contribute in terms of teaching people how to eat a plant-based diet. But in some states, their actions are still a little iffy in terms of legality. If you read my newsletter, you know about the guy operating a blog who was told that he had to stop because it bordered on criminal activity. So I think that we have to determine now, or we have to reach the conclusion that our method for determining who can and cannot talk about nutrition and healthcare maybe needs to change a little bit. In fact, if you go to T. Colin Campbell's website, he has an article posted on this topic himself. He has started to reconsider his own ideas about who is and isn't qualified, and I'll just let you go read that article. I won't recite it for you here. But historically, licensure has been granted to groups who had money and organization and could fight their way to licensure, but maybe we need to rethink that whole strategy. So as we ask ourselves, should we continue to let healthcare and dietary advice remain in the hands of those people who control it right now? Let's ask ourselves a few questions. Are Americans happy with their health status, happy with their health care? Are costs going up or down? Is the situation getting better or worse? Are people getting the right information about diet and health and medicine and drugs and procedures? Well, I think we all know the answers to these questions, and they really point to the need for change. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this a million times and it's overused, but if we keep on doing the same things over and over again, we're going to keep getting the results we've always gotten over and over again. And we really do need to make things happen differently. So my advice to licensed professionals is that they need to become part of the solution instead of part of the problem. In other words, instead of having this big battle between people who are the established group and newcomers trying to come in, why don't we all work together, put aside our differences, and let's work for the betterment of public health instead of fighting and scrapping to see who gets to control business. And for those people who are really worried about competition coming in from non-licensed professionals, I have a word of advice for you. You need to learn how to attract and retain your business the way the rest of us have, by being good at what you do, not by engaging government to keep everybody else out of your business. Just be good. That's really all it takes to get an edge in today's marketplace. So, as I mentioned, I really think it's time to put differences aside and stop fighting about silly issues like who gets to use certain titles and whose turf gets protected. And we need to all work together, those of us who have an interest in improving public health, and have open discourse and discussion. And let's put the political process aside a little bit. Not that we don't focus on politics, but let's make politics work for us instead of against us. My gosh, what would happen if we walked into a legislative session sometime and said, you know what, we're all here together to present ideas that we've all agreed on, so we don't even need to have weeks and weeks of hearings so we can scream and holler at each other and prove each other wrong. We just would like for you guys to help us do better for public health. What a concept. So really, I could go on and on about this topic, and probably will in future film clips, but I'll stop here, and if you think there are others who would be interested in hearing this message, please feel free to forward it.